this synth, it's just like a very horrible sounding synth doing the chords, but playing something else through it, whatever instrument 8 is on here, it turns it into this.
We're giving away a signed vinyl of Jamie XX's In Waves. All you have to do for a chance to win is like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tell us your favourite track on the album in the comments. The winner will be announced in the comments at the end of the month. We've heard some of the ingredients. What happened next? How did you build up this track?
It was a mixture of... So I wanted it to be like a sharp change from like the lushness of the sample and the sweetness of the sample to this very stark drum beat, and it's literally just a Logic bass, that again a very basic plugin. I quite like using those Logic ones that are like the earliest ones because they have sort of a rawness to them that some of the fancy new plugins lose. They're all a bit too sort of smooth. And then like another, just like I think for this I used the basic drum sampler on Logic as well. When you start programming it, playing it like just on the keyboard, but you add glide to the sampler, it sort of changes the attack on the drums. So it's basically like gliding up and down between hi-hat and clap and kick. So it's doing what it would do on a synth, except it's just making every drum slightly bendy. And I think it sounds really nice. And I do that quite a lot to sort of give some sort of newness to old drum machine sounds. So it ends up sounding like this. It's kind of not very noticeable until you take it off, and it can actually tell what it's doing. But yeah, and then I just ran it through Distortion and this thermal thing, which adds it's just like a bunch of sort of wideners and effect things that sometimes I use, but I find often that actually when you're trying to mix something, it kind of does too much. And when I take it into like a mixing session with David, say I'll do a stem with thermal on and with one without, because we can recreate it in a much more like natural way that's not messing with the audio too much.
Right.
So this is thermal on, and this is it off. It's basically making it louder with drive, and this has a sub thing on, but I've taken all the bass out of it anyway. But I think it's probably also on the kick. Oh no, I took it off the kick because it made it too much for when I was mixing, but it does sound good if you're just listening in headphones. And the other fun thing on this is the synth thing that I made using Morph SC. I think it's Synaptic is the company that makes it. It's essentially a vocoder type thing, but you can run drums through it to trigger synths and vice versa and come up with lots of strange sounds. So this is, if I turn it off, this synth is just I think it's like a choral, it's just like a very horrible sounding synth doing the chords, but playing something else through it, whatever instrument 8 is on here, it turns it into this.
Markedly different, I would say.
Yeah, it suddenly becomes beautiful and you can't tell what's happening. It basically is just, there's something triggering it, poking it through every time. And like, again, it just creates these artifacts that feel so organic and natural. And then I ran it through the Space Echo over there, which just adds that spring reverb. can't even remember what is triggering it, but something on here is doing that. Whatever instrument 8 is. And it's probably just another horrible sounding synth, but combined, they make that.
This episode is being supported by our good friends at Tape It, the iPhone app made specifically for musicians. If you, like many of our guests, use voice memos, then as far as we're concerned, switching to Tape It is an obvious choice. It's free, and there are a load of features you won't find on Apple's Voice Memos app, including the ability to record straight from your lock screen, set markers, add notes, include photos of settings, and you can easily import your old voice notes, sync to the cloud, and create shared playlists with co-writers and bandmates. So head to the link below to install the app now. And if you want even more, check out Tape It Pro and use the promo code TAPENOTES to receive a whopping 20% off. And now, back to the episode.
Panda Bear sent his part, which was again totally different, and took it into a whole new world again. And I loved the idea that this track would just like sort of, like the sample, comes in and out so brashly. Every new style would come in and out brashly and be unexpected. And so the combination of Lou, John Glacier and Panda Bear together was like, I felt like everything was different enough for it to make sense. Yeah.
Are you able to play either of those?
Yes. So the Panda Bear bit, he's so good at treating his vocals. He sent me a dry stem and a wet stem with all of the auto-tune stuff and the reverb. And I ended up just using his wet stem, I think, because he's got some special techniques that sound so good.
Lost, just thinking of someone, think they met at a party. There's someone for everyone. Sometimes a piece could be anyone, so place it there.
Is the dry stem that's still there?
No, that's literally just the wet.
Yeah.
There's actually a second part of the verse that he sent that is not in the track, but it's also really good, and I wanted to put it in there, but...
Wet under the shower, head a step into the garden. Too hot into the shady places, black top scraping a shin, it's in the air.
I was in the studio in LA, which had a proper reverb chamber, like the old 60s sort of Lee Hazelwood sound.
Right.
Which I love. And we ran the dry Panda Bear stuff through that room. I spent ages EQing it and EQing out all of the little spikes that happen when you're bouncing stuff off of a room. And it sounded cool, but the original just sounded better to me, so I ended up using that.
Is there anything else in Daffodil that we should hear, musically-wise?
I mean, it's pretty simple. The only other stuff is like just the switch up in the bass in the middle section. There's like these drum fills that I think was... that's just done on MPC. And then the bass that switches up in that new section goes from that kind of crappy Logic plugin to another crappy Logic plugin that sounds, it's like a double bass thing, but I think it reminds me of those early 2000s sort of DJ Luck and MC Neat garage sounds, which I always loved. And then the only other part of this track is the piano that I wanted to sound like a sort of Dr. Dre, Eminem-esque thing. So originally it was just this crappy Logic sampler piano, the most basic Yamaha piano, messed around with an enveloper and like just bringing up the end so that it made it more extreme, making it sound as unrealistic as possible. But it never quite fitted in the mix because it just, with everything else in there, it just didn't stand out. So then I recorded a real piano over the top, very quietly, just for texture.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And I mean, you lose a lot of different plugins on tracks? Do you experiment with them, or do you just think, right, it's there to do a thing and I'll try it out, and if it works, it works?
I try, like, whenever I'm working with somebody new, like if I'm doing a pop session in LA or working with a friend who's a producer, I'll just sort of ask them about what they're doing, and they'll always have something new that's something I haven't heard of, and then I'll just experiment with it and do my own thing with it. But I find that almost every time I try and do something on purpose, especially with a plugin, it's never as good as I imagine it. But as soon as I let it just sort of make mistakes, or it leads me down a path, then it's much better. Probably because I don't have any expectations.